It was Christmas, 1975, and I began early that year crafting my letter to Santa Claus. I was 5 years old that year, and it was the first year I'd written with real words. They were crooked letters and funny misspellings drawn in crayon, illustrated with my best attempts at drawing a Christmas tree. I felt an urgency that year, I recall, because there was something I deeply wanted for Christmas. I was pretty sure, in fact, that my life would be over if I did not wake up on Christmas morning to find what my heart so desperately longed for. She was called Baby Alive. A new toy widely advertised on television, and she came with these little packets of food that you could mix with water and then feed the baby, right? I wanted this doll with all my heart, and I wasn't shy about making that fact known. I talked about Baby Alive incessantly, which I recall my mother used to her advantage with various vague threats, warning of her close relationship with Santa Claus. I made my case as urgently as I could. I wrote that letter to the North Pole. I pored over the dog-eared JCPenney catalog page where she appeared. I tried to be very, very, very good. And I could barely sleep the night before Christmas, hoping beyond hope that I'd done enough to convince Santa Claus to bring me Baby Alive. And you can imagine my elation the next morning when we opened our presents and Santa had in fact brought me a Baby Alive. She wore this blue terry cloth jumpsuit and her brown hair was pulled into 2 ponytails on either side of her head. As advertised, she came with 20 little packets of food you could mix with water. I fed her every single one of those on Christmas Day. Think for a minute with me back to the best gift you have ever received. It could be anything for any occasion. It is the thing that set your world to rights, the gift for which you've been longing forever. Do you remember what it was? During these next few weeks, we'll be talking about gifts, trying to peer through the darkness just enough to see clearly all the possibility and hope we claim when we welcome God with us. And one of the most profound gifts we have in these dark and fear-filled days is each other. Community, the power and promise of which allows us to even summon the courage to hope. And so we'll be turning toward each other, talking with each other, reminding each other of the simple and profound gifts of this season. Today we begin with this question. What is the best gift you have ever received? Would you turn in your seat and tell your neighbor the best gift you have ever received? Let's hear some of them. Dr. Davis, what's the best gift you ever received?
Actually, it was a baby doll, all dressed in pink, and I got it.
Let's see, who else? Jacardo? What's the best gift you ever received?
Baby sister.
Oh. Okay, one more. Jeremiah, what's the best gift you ever received?
A weight set. Yeah, working out.
It's paying off. At the start of a brand new church year, we note that this church year, its dawning begins soundly in the dark, with the light of day waning far too early, and all of us navigating the subway to get home after nightfall, turning on lamps and Christmas tree lights to make our apartments feel warm, and trying everything that we can to push away the darkness. And in these weeks leading up to Christmas, the darkness of winter and the darkness of doubt, fear, and insecurity, all the hardest parts of what it means to be human, they converge. And they leave us longing for something hopeful, for just the smallest glimmer of light. The words of Scripture we've heard this first Sunday of Advent are words spoken in darkness, apocalyptic texts that tell of the end of things, not the beginning. And that makes sense because the people reading Mark's recounting of life with Jesus would have been doing that in the shadow of the Jewish revolt against Roman occupation. That revolt was met with Romans starving out Jerusalem, breaking into the city, destroying the temple. Christians were being punished for their faith, losing jobs, security, family. For the people reading Mark's recounting, every day felt like the end of the world. Disbelief and pain and destruction all around them. Things seemed so bad that hoping for the gift of light in the darkness was not just a casual pastime for them, it was flatly a matter of life and death. Listen to the language of urgency in the text this morning. Tear open the heavens, shine forth, keep awake, dark, light, stars falling, heaven shaken. Oh God, let your face shine. This is not the kind of waiting we're accustomed to. Waiting in line, waiting on hold for customer service, waiting with John Mayer for the world to change. The kind of waiting our text calls for here is never described in the language of complacency or enacted from the posture of futile surrender. This is a defiant call for the light, an insistence that the simple gift that has been ours all along should come. And we expect it to. We demand that it will break through the darkness in our world. This first Sunday of Advent is the Sunday of hope. And Rebecca Solnit reminds us, it is important to say what hope is not. It is not the belief that everything was, is, or will be fine. The evidence is all around us of tremendous suffering and destruction. This hope is about broad perspectives with specific possibilities, ones that invite or demand that we act. Patrisse Cullors, one of the founders of Black Lives Matter, early on described this movement's mission as to provide hope and inspiration for collective action to build collective power, to achieve collective transformation rooted in grief and rage, but pointed toward vision and dreams. Hope like this doesn't just wait for the light. Hope like this demands the light. There's no time to sit back and passively wish for something to get better. The darkness is pressing in all around us. As we transition from ordinary time into Advent, we acknowledge that these days our world seems anything but ordinary. In fact, the world seems especially lacking in hope this year. Politics in this country are spiraling out of control. We feel as if we're hurtling toward a catastrophic disaster of vast proportions, like the very fundamental identity we thought we knew is suddenly gone. Darkness. And so in these moments, we will turn again toward each other and toward God, claiming the simple gifts of our lives that call us perpetually toward hope. What can we do? Where do we find enough courage to hope? How do we respond to the darkness? When we look at our lives and all we can see are the deepening shadows of despair, broken relationships, loneliness, desperation, depression, fear. When we look in the mirror and hate what we see. When our hearts ache for the absence, for the warmth of an absent presence. when we cannot summon the courage to live as our true selves in the world, when all that we hoped for our lives does not materialize as we imagined, Advent calls us to demand the light. When elected officials conspire to enact corrupt tax laws, to hurt the poor, to violate the very principles of honor and trust and freedom on which our corporate life is founded, when social media rants by desperately unstable world leaders result in our Muslim brothers and sisters suffering, when power and privilege run rampant to hurt, harass, and dehumanize women, when the faith we follow, the gospel of love and justice, becomes a club that bludgeons the most vulnerable among us, when human constructs wobble and political frameworks are dismantled and what made us feel safe before makes us feel vulnerable now, this is how we wait. We demand the light. And when this precious earth is dying as the result of our neglect and greed, when refugees run from decimated cities only to drown or be turned away at the border, when human bodies are still being sold into slavery, when children are starving and humanity's soul is rotting from the inside out, what will we do? We will demand the light. For the simple gift of light in the deepest darkness, we summon the audacious, insistent hope this first Sunday of Advent. We will not be silent in the face of evil. We will not participate in the sin that surrounds us. We will not be bowed by the weight of the darkness. We will not. We will summon audacious hope. We will demand the light. Let your face shine on us, O Lord, so that we might be saved. Amen.